I was just talking to Jim about kind of what you each contribute as directors for the film. Um, so I guess my first question, what was it like to work together, and how do you, what do you each bring to the table, and how did that contribute to getting this film made?
Um, we've known each other for a very long period of time, and I've had the pleasure of mixing three of Nicole's previous feature-length documentaries. And about 5 years ago, I had lunch with her and was talking to her about maybe pitching her on some ideas for directing a film around some disability issues. And at the end of the conversation, I kind of said, I would love to see a documentary about my summer camp. I think there's a connection here. And there's a wonderful story here, but to answer your question directly, it was my hope that if she got interested in this, that she direct and I would produce. And but Nicole came back after she decided that she was interested in the project. She asked me to direct with her, which for me was a really wonderful, I even don't have the great words for it, to be honest with you, but it was really wonderful. And because we knew each other and because we respected each other and cared about each other, we forged an excellent collaboration. I've never directed a film before. So I really credit our friendship and commitment to each other in the project to enabling us to have a great collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, one thing you could say is that Jim brought something I didn't have, and which the project is kind of the heart of the project, which is the perspective and experience, lived experience of a life with a disability, and of that living the exact experience and history that the film traces. And that was really important to me when I thought about directing it myself. I thought what's really actually incredible here is that, Jim is a film professional. He's seen scores of documentaries, worked on some of the best documentaries as a sound designer, really could contribute from kind of an aesthetic and filmmaking point of view to the directing process, but also, would be that kind of like internal compass of what is true, and I wouldn't have had that. And so for me, I've made a lot of documentaries about communities that I'm not a part of. And this was the first time that I had co-directed a film like that with someone from that community. And I thought it was really wonderful collaboration, because I think my outside perspective and my questioning kind of pushed Jim, and Jim's insistence on, dialing it in just right, so that it felt true to him, pushed me. And so, I think that it really was, tricky and not always easy, but we trust each other and really have a great relationship and like each other a lot. And so, we worked through it until it felt good to us, and that was great.
Yeah, and it really worked out. The documentary showcases a lot of old footage from Camp Jened. So I guess I'm wondering, is there a reason that campers thought to document their experiences in the first place, or why were cameras rolling, and did people have a sense at the time that what they were experiencing was revolutionary?
I don't think at least at camp, and the experience at camp, I don't know whether we had a strong sense there was something brewing here that would grow into something bigger. We were just happy to be out in the country and able to really experience this freedom and freewheeling environment. The filming that wound up happening, as you see in the black and white footage, was because this group of kind of hippie videographers happened to bump into some people from Camp Jened at a gas station close by the camp, and they kind of said, "Hey, who are you? Who are you?" And and so the people from Camp Jened invited them to come over and come check out our Camp Olympics that were happening. And they show up for the Camp Olympics, and the gate is closed. And when they finally get in there, it was because the camp was completely upside down because two counselors had gotten the crabs. and then it was like, well, they're off. They've already got really great material to start filming.
Yeah, that is an interesting start. Did the campers film themselves at all, or was it mostly the filmographers or, you know, the outside individuals with the footage?
They did most of the filming, but one day they strapped and we're talking about really kind of heavy duty video tape deck. They strapped it to the handlebars of my wheelchair and gave me a camera, and somebody pushed me around campus. I did a tour.
Oh.
And when Nicole and I looked at the footage, you know, we really looked, and I think that, like, one of the campers, I remember Buddha, I think he had the camera for a while in one of the scenes that we were watching.
Interesting.
But, you know, it really was like a radical empowerment exercise on the part of the videographers. That's what they were going for. And one thing that I loved learning was that, you know, there was, like, when they arrived at the gate and the gate was locked, you know, first of all, when they saw the campers and the counselors at the gas station, they knew something special was going on. And when they got to the gate, there were a couple of other people there too, waiting to be let in. A woman who did past life regression work and an art therapist. And it seemed like people were recognizing something truly extraordinary was going on at the camp, and they were wanting to kind of get in and figure it out and document it. And I think just like when we watch Crip Camp, we have this feeling we're watching something that we've never seen before, and that's why it feels so special. I feel like, you know, some people at the time knew that, and I definitely was very touched by the reminiscences of the people who worked at the camp and went to the camp. You know, Denise Jacobson, who's in the film, called it our golden age, you know, and people talked about it as kind of their utopia. And so I think there was a recognition even at the time, and certainly that carried throughout the years, that this was something, you know, truly extraordinary that transformed people's lives.
And in the present, when you started working on this, what was the process for retrieving and putting together the footage, or how did you get a hold of it, and what were the challenges involved in wrangling all of this together?
Well, Jim just remembered that he said, you got to look up, there's some group that came and they had, you know, people something, I can't remember, and I think they gave me the camera, and I was like, oh my God, we have to try to find that, you know, that would be gold. And so we just kept looking and finally found it in an old magazine, you know, that the actual name of the group, and then was able to track down surviving members, and they said, no, try this guy. And I finally found a guy on the board of a radical bookstore in San Francisco named Howard Gutstadt, and he said, yeah, you know, my colleague Ben and I have all that footage, and we're actually in the middle of transferring it. So that was kind of like a miracle. And that's how we got all that footage. But then, you know, as you saw, there's so many other sources making up the rest of the story post camp and the movement part of the story. And that was very difficult to find. Some of it had used in other films and seen before, but we really wanted to try to flesh out the kind of world of the Center for Independent Living and the world of the inside of the building in the 504, and be able to make the point that the same people from Jened, you know, were a part of those other two communities, and that those two communities inside the building and inside the Center for Independent Living were really also camp-like. And so that required actually tracking down more footage than had been previously seen. And we spent years looking for things, and we found some things in, you know, boxes that had never been itemized before. We found lists of tapes in archives that had never been printed before.
Mhm.
Netflix we had the resource to be able to do that. But one thing I feel very passionately about is that, you know, this history, disability history, really needs money to be able to be better archived, better preserved, and better recorded. And we felt like it was, you know, kind of shocking to us actually how the condition of some of the preservation and some of the archives that we looked at. It's such a major part of our history, and a lot of it had just never even really been looked through before. You know.
Mhm. And, you know, for our organization, the Disabled Rights Action Committee, seeing Crip Camp played at Sundance was certainly the impetus for us to start digitizing our records. You know, we have archives that go back to 1991, so not quite so far back, but we have all this information in our archives, and it's a shame that it isn't publicly available. So it inspired us to start a digital museum that we're trying to get up and running online. And it's, you know, I see a lot of other organizations who have seen this film that are inspired to preserve their archives for similar reasons. And it's really important work that hasn't been done yet. So thank you for spearheading that. And my last question, so I'm wondering, is there content that didn't make it into the final cut, but that was really interesting that you, you know, didn't fit the overarching story, but that was fascinating for other reasons?
There was a, needless to say, there was a lot. I mean, just the black and white footage from Camp Jened, we had 5.5 hours of that video that we, you know, we looked through a few times. And Nicole, I remember you saying in one of our interviews, it's like, this was like watching like the best 5.5 hour documentary you've ever seen. And it was just all of their raw footage. On Netflix's YouTube channel for I guess it's, anyway, they've made a video called "On the Cutting Room Floor," and we talk about this subject and show a couple of scenes that didn't make it into the film. But
they asked us each to pick one, and Jim picked this awesome scene about getting his first car, and how the car was like it was freedom, you know. And then when he was driving the car, you know, no one could see his disability, and he was just like free to go wherever he wanted to go, and what a powerful experience that was in his memory. And it had great music in it, and we loved it, but we had to let it go. And then I picked this scene from of Denise Sher Jacobson telling her story of her childhood, actually, and being like, you know, living in this second story apartment in the Bronx and not really being able to get in and out. And then even when she did, not being able to go off the block because, you know, there were no curb cuts, and really like going from that very extreme isolation into this world of Jened and find first friend. It's a really beautiful story, and I feel like it could be its own little short film in its own right because she's such a great storyteller.
Yeah, absolutely. And the music for the film, it was fantastic. You did a fabulous job pulling that together. Well, I just want to say thank you for your time. I really appreciate you taking some time this afternoon to chat with us. We love the film. You know, we were so excited to get to see it at Sundance, and we're thrilled to get to share it with a larger audience this Saturday. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
thank you.